Last thing I want to talk to you about color revolution. I think the Durham did a program about
Yeah,
the Bangladesh,
yeah,
situation. And we talked about this in the past. When it first happened, the Chinese media said that was because this their prime minister Zia, right, Khalida Zia, she was friendly to China, but also she's obviously very close to India.
yeah.
Well, I actually think it's a good thing for a country like Bangladesh, relatively speaking, small compared to China and India. So the fact that she has good relationship with both of them is a good thing. But apparently that somehow upset the US. So that's what this is. The US is targeting her because of her close relationship, in particular with India. Is that what it is?
Absolutely, but there's also another objective, which she's now actually disclosed, which is that the Americans are apparently putting enormous pressure on her to agree to the US establishing a big naval base in Bangladesh, so that the US could establish a permanent naval presence in the Bay of
Yeah.
Bengal. And
Mm-hmm.
she said no.
Mm-hmm.
And who is that naval presence directed against?
Yeah.
India, obviously,
Uh-huh.
and China to a certain extent. I
Yeah.
mean, no one else.
And if you were her, you will be under the pressure from both China and India to not to do it. And of course, you are located where you are. Of course, you wouldn't want to create tensions like that, right? That US base, once it's established there will be tensions with all these countries. It's never good for peace like that, right?
Well,
So,
Jeffrey Sachs once put it in a program we did with him on the Duran. Best of all, that if you want to make your country prosper, the way to do it is by being friends with the countries around you, and that's what I think she was trying to do in
yeah.
Bangladesh. Maybe not always very well. I mean, I'm not here to say that she
Mm,
was the best
yeah.
excellent, wonderful prime minister. No doubt there were many things, but she got the strategic things right.
Mm,
There is no benefit to Bangladesh from having a naval base, a US naval base on its territory. There is lots of benefit from Bangladesh having peaceful and friendly relations with India and excellent relations with China. We discussed this in our last program. Bangladesh has been through a kind of economic boom, but it's of a very, very limited level. The way to develop Bangladesh properly economically is to have the only country that can do it, China, come in, rebuild your infrastructure, build your railways, invest in your factories, help you to develop your economy in the way that you need it to be developed. In our last program, we talked about Vietnam, and we mentioned the fact that To Lam, the new Vietnamese president and general secretary, was going to China despite all the tensions that we talked about last time over Cambodia. He was there. They were talking about economic links. They were talking about the investment and industrial and infrastructure linkages. And you could see that Vietnam, despite whatever issues it might have with China, understands very well that ultimately, in to benefit its own people, it needs to have good relations, the optimal relations with China, because it's from China that the investment and the technology and the infrastructure will come. In fact, I mean, if you look at the readouts of the various discussions between Tolam and Xi Jinping, you can see that, and that's the policy that Bangladesh needs ought to ought to try to follow. And of course, that's not going to happen now.
yeah. And the color revolution is keep on going, right? It's not
No,
just limited to Bangladesh because it's not.
no,
I think maybe 2 months ago, Pakistan had some internal.
yeah,
Um, I would say they arrested many people, but we find
yeah,
out recently they
yeah.
let people know. But there was something going on there,
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
yeah, and then Cambodia also have something to the degree that the Cambodia president, I mean, or prime minister, the leaders of Cambodia even warn people that there will be people coming out of in the name of demonstration, but they are doing
Mm,
something to trying to overthrow the government, something like that. It didn't
yeah,
happen because it seems like Cambodia got the news ahead of time and they were well prepared. So it didn't really happen. But Cambodia, leaders warned the public. And of course, they did something. And it's not that long ago they did something in Serbia, etc.
Yeah. Oh, it goes on all.
Venezuela is another place, etc.
Yeah,
etc.
exactly. Well, the Russians back in, I think it was January, warned Bangladesh that
Uh-huh.
this was coming there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they didn't prepare for it well enough to deal with it. But you're absolutely right, and they're trying it in Thailand
Uh-huh.
apparently, and they've been
Uh-huh.
trying it in Myanmar. It's been an ongoing
Yeah.
issue.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they do this all the time and in every place, even as the National Endowment for Democracy, the so-called NGO, it's not really an NGO,
Mm-hmm.
that is the primary mechanism for doing all of this. Apparently, it's in the grip of a massive internal feud. But nonetheless, in spite of all of that, they go on doing this thing wherever they can, and always, you know, playing games of geopolitical chess, which when it's all over, we're going to see how completely irrelevant they are. I mean, if the Americans acquire their naval base in the Bay of Bengal, what ultimate difference is it going to make to the strategic balance of power? None.
Yeah. It would just irritates India and China. And other than that,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. And then if you look at everything, it seems to me like the current administration does not interested in sincere effort to make peace in Middle East, in
No.
Ukraine, or even interested in running US, right? Because their
No.
platform just haven't been updated ever since Kamala Harris become the candidate. But one place they are sincere is doing all kinds of color revolution. That's where
Yes.
they seems do put in lots of effort in there.
Absolutely. This has become the big industry now. And you see a lot of people make a lot of money out of it. I mean,
Mhm.
this is a very, very profitable operation because color revolutions are very expensive things. You need to pour in huge amounts of money in order to make them work. I think I said in a previous program that the Russians disclosed how much money the US spent on one color revolution in Kyrgyzstan, which was $250 million. Now, this is an incredibly poor country, relatively small. I mean, there's no point in that. But if a color revolution in Kyrgyzstan costs that much money, that tells you how much money is involved in this game. And of course, a lot of people become very, very rich on the back of it.
Mm. Yeah, down to it, it's always somebody benefit from it. Yes,
Yeah.
that's yeah. Okay, the last thing, there are two astronauts, U.S. astronaut, talking about the government is not governing, is now stuck in the International Space Center, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's the latest one. Actually, Russian is the one who brought them some supply. Now, Russian brought
Yeah.
it to its own astronauts, but also these two U.S. astronauts. There is very little coverage about that. That the fact
None.
the Russian was helping those two U.S. astronauts, right? Isn't it? That
Yeah.
seems like these two are almost forgotten by the U.S. government. That's
They are
that's
they are effectively forgotten by the U.S. government. They're forgotten by everybody. You know, decades ago, back in the 1970s, I remember watching a science fiction film. This is during the era of détente, in which some American space people were marooned in space, just in Earth orbit, and they were eventually rescued by the Americans. But the interesting thing was that the Soviets also, at that time, this is in the film, sent a spaceship to try and help these people. It wasn't necessary because the Americans in the film found the
Mhm.
means to help. Well, here we have reality. It's now actually happening.
Yeah.
The Russians come to help these people. And of course, nobody talks
No.
about the fact that these are people who are marooned in space. Nobody's talking about the fact that it's the Russians who are coming to their rescue. Nobody wants to talk about these things. One of if you were reading the British media over the last few weeks, you would think that the biggest event in the world that took place over the last couple of days is the fact that a big yacht capsized in a storm in the Mediterranean and that a British billionaire was drowned.
Oh, do you?
I mean, they're still writing about it now.
Okay. Yeah. It is interesting though, but but
Yeah,
but but those already happened. The people died, or
I know, I know. What
yeah,
happens, as you said? I mean, you
yeah. And these two people are still alive and need to be rescued. Now, the whole thing,
yeah,
even before they came, they left the Earth. There were multiple issues. I thought they should just cancel the whole thing.
yeah.
Why do they still taking the risk to send those people up there? What I mean, why are they taking such a risk?
Again, there's a very simple answer to this. China again,
Okay.
because the Americans are now becoming increasingly worried that the Chinese are establishing a major presence in space. They always, the Americans are only fitfully interested in space. It's always about politics with them. So now China is big in space, so we must maintain our presence in space. So even if we take terrible risks and put people in dangerous
Mm.
situations, we must maintain the presence in space because, well, we can't cede control of space to the Chinese because that's the high ground, supposedly.
Yeah, and the result of that, those two people are stuck there, and they rely on
Exactly,
the Russia supply
exactly,
to,
exactly.
kept alive. So I find this
It,
disgrace that they're doing this because these two are not really young. They're doing this to these people who are
yeah,
close to their, retirement. I
absolutely.
find this
Oh,
incredible.
it is incredible, and one can imagine also the stress on these people and on their
Yes,
families, and I mean, it seems incredible that this should happen. But this is the US. I think, by the way, just to say, I think a lot of people in China don't understand the extent to which some people, not many people, but some powerful people in the US have China on the brain all the time, and the way it makes them do all kinds of strange things. I mean, the balloon incident. Remember that last year? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that should have really perhaps shown this,
Hmm.
but they have China on the brain all the time,
Mhm,
and it's one of the reasons why
mhm.
they do these reckless things, why they've done this reckless thing in space.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately. I mean, you're right. I think when I'm talking to regular people, people are not obsessed about
No,
China or Russia, or
no,
Iran,
no.
but somehow the powerful people in
Yeah,
Washington, some of them are totally obsessed with Russia.
no.
Some of them totally obsessed with China.
Yes,
Some of
yes,
them totally upset with Iran.
yes.
Some of them obsessed with all.
Exactly, exactly. Exactly. And of course, they've now produced what we'll probably discuss next week a new nuclear weapons defense thing in which we have to take them all on at the same time, the Chinese, the Russians, the North Koreans, the
And the
Iranians.
Iran. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, they're
Okay.
all they're all we they're all our adversaries. This is our nuclear program. Take them all on, everyone. I mean, it seems it is it is so frightening
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
stupid that one just doesn't know whether to tremble or to laugh.
it's a it's funny and dangerous at the same time, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
scary. Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll look into that system that they're building. We can talk next time then.
yeah.
So, thank you so much.
It's their new nuclear weapons policy.
Okay,
Biden has just signed off on it. Apparently, that
so that's
China
what.
is n- China is now the major nuclear threat.
So
Apparently, overtaking Russia, but Russia is also very bad, and North Korea
okay,
is also. And they're all in a line against the United States together.
and that's the legacy that Biden want to leave. That
Well,
start a
absolutely.
nuclear war, kind of. Start.
Well,
Okay,
if not a nuclear war, then a nuclear arms race
okay,
against all of these countries at once. I mean, it seems amazing.
okay. Like we can continue next time, next Wednesday. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too.